The third quadrant, 10 o'clock class, as we wrap up this belief quiz, is actually going to be the upper left. And you'll notice up here, we're now above the horizontal line. The folks that are up here are going to believe in regulating moral issues. And the folks that are going to be up here are going to believe in staying out of the economic ones. If you remember from the last video, we talked about liberals. Liberals are the ones that believe in keeping government regulating economics and staying out of morals. This is the exact opposite, regulating morals and keeping government out of the economy. Maybe this should not be a surprise then, that if you folks scored up in this upper left-hand quadrant, you folks are going to be my conservatives. Now what surprises me up here is there's actually a very good number of conservatives. Donald, Franklin, George, Carlos, Travis, Nero, Sean, Jason, Pavel from Russia. If you notice, all of you folks scored conservative. And when we talk about this, conservatives in a very basic sense are going to believe that you conserve what is going on with an existing society. So when we talk about economics, conservatives are going to agree very strongly with libertarians, meaning they do not want economic regulations. Let us earn our keep. Let us keep, in fact, what we earn, and we'll go forward. And if you don't earn enough, then in fact, that's on you. This is about individual responsibility. You need to work harder. When it comes to taxation, it doesn't matter if I make 1 million or if I make 10,000, I should be taxed basically a flat rate, maybe 10% for example, so that in fact you could argue maybe the poor are going to be getting taxed a little bit more harshly, but if I've earned that money, why in fact should I give it back to the government? Conservatives are technically going to be very, very much in favor of the idea that I can spend my money better than the government, in fact, can spend it for me. So again, this is about individual responsibility. This is about individual earning. This is about individually keeping what it is that you've earned. When it comes to the moral issues, this is going to be different than any of the other categories that we talked about, because the conservatives are typically going to believe in regulating moral issues. When it comes to prayer, prayer represents a value that has been a tradition in the history of the United States. We need to conserve that tradition or conserve that value. So yeah, we need to require school prayer. Marriage is a traditional institution that has been between a man and a woman. We need to conserve this institution. We need to preserve this institution rather than letting it expand. When you start getting into things like abortion, the exact same kind of thing, although in fairness, abortion has been legal for a number of decades now, you might begin to argue that you might need to conserve those 40 years now that they're the most recent ones, but maybe before that it has not always been legal. So understand, conservatives, for test purposes, are going to believe that government should stay out of wallet or economic issues, and in fact they should regulate the moral or the bedroom ones. Now, the last group up there, and, I've asked this on a couple of occasions, do you think the government, in fact, can spend your money better than you can spend it for yourself? Some people would argue that government could actually make better decisions for people, not just economically, but also morally than the people could make for themselves. And that is the double regulation category. If you remember with libertarians believe that government should not get involved in the bedroom. Libertarians believe that government should not get involved in economic issues. Well, the exact opposite of a libertarian is going to believe in regulating morals and regulating economics. And if you folks scored up in this quadrant, you folks are what are known as my populists. Populists are going to believe that government is there to help the lifestyle of Joe and Jane Sixpack. Government is there to help people that cannot fully help themselves. Now, if you go back and you think about it, Republican conservative types are going to believe that government can help on the moral issues. The liberal Democratic types are going to believe that government, in fact, can help on the economic ones. Populists are saying, we can do better as a government for you in both of these areas than you can do for yourself. So in fact, they're going to believe in regulating economics. They're going to believe in taxing. They're going to believe in spending. They're going to believe in the health insurance. They're going to believe in all of these things. And the thought process is that higher taxes mean that we, the government, can do more for you. Well, your inability to make the best decisions mean we as the government have to have the higher taxes so that we're enabled to do more for you. When it comes to the moral regulation, it's the exact same kind of a thing. And when you put this into a degree of context on this, basically what we're saying up here is, in terms of bedrooms, school prayer, limits on abortion. We're going to be dealing with the ability that, yes, if I feel threatened, I should be allowed to protect myself because, in fact, I've got to do this in order to protect what I have, my family, these kinds of things. The fear is going to be able to justify the action. And when it comes to something like legalizing weed, populists are not going to be in favor of that at all, because the populists themselves are basically going to be thinking, they're going to be thinking we need to prevent people from ingesting substances that are going to limit their judgment. You'll notice up here, Anissa, Carl, Jesse, Louise, Gisela, all of you actually score in this populist category. Now, here's the funny thing about this. Populists typically are going to start off with the right intentions. They're going to believe in some small increments maybe. If government regulates, we can actually make things better for people's lives. The problem is that once they start, they continue to regulate and regulate and regulate. And what you'll end up seeing up here is that it is not too much for a populist to also become something that is known very simply as a dictator. Because the more that they regulate, and it works, the more that they think that they need to regulate more. If you get an exam question, who is most likely to be the dictator in the class? It's got to be Gisela. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gisela, on 7 of the 9, you said that government should regulate moral issues. On 7 of the 9, you said government, in fact, should regulate economic issues. You, in fact, are a very strong populist all the way around. I can make better decisions than you can for yourself. You'll notice over here, Louise. Louise, you're on the same line in terms of economics as Gisela, but Louise, you've got a little bit more, dare I say, tolerance on some of the moral issues. But in fact, Anissa, Carl, and Jeffrey, all of you are going to believe in stronger regulation of the moral issues and maybe more moderation, in fact, on the wallet ones. If you fall in the populist category, though, typically you've got some control issues, and this is something that we're going to have to talk about at some point during the course of the class. I may have forgotten this before, and just to jump back to the conservatives really quick like, you'll notice over here, as far as the individuals are concerned, and I did not mention this, there's George, Donald, Franklin, Carlos, Travis, Nero, Sean, Jason, Pavel from Russia. As you notice on this, a lot of you conservative folks are really moderate on the economic issues. However, the further you get away, the more conservative you are. So George and Carlos, for example, y'all believe, Donald and Franklin, y'all believe very strongly, in fact, that government should regulate the morals. However, Pavel and Jason, you are equally strong on government staying out of the wallet, but you're not as intense about the moral issues. And I guess that's kind of the key to this. Make sure that you recognize it's not just that you believe in regulating one or not regulating the other, but in order to kind of predict what your beliefs are, you need to know what people think about both government regulation of morals and government regulation of economics. For this exam, make sure that you can link conservative, liberal, libertarian, and populist with those two concepts. How much or how little government regulates both economics and morals. Good luck as you study for the exam.